From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan, along with my partner, Luigi, the Professor, Rosa Bianca. What's going on, Lou?
Matt, how are you, pal? And I have to warn you, I am not getting a root canal. There's some construction going on in the neighborhood, so you're going to hear some vibrations, but that just adds to the nuanced background. Today, we're in for a real treat. We've got Andrew Johnson here from ShelfAware, small business entrepreneur, second generation, and a little bit of a glutton for punishment because he works with his 3 brother-in-laws. So, Andrew Johnson, welcome to the Liquid Lunch Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you, and please bless us with some pearls of wisdom, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Luigi. Thanks, Matt. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, we're definitely happy you're here. So we have Andrew, we have a lot of clients, we have a lot of listeners that are actually in the family business dynamic too. And we know it gets tough at times. So why don't you tell us a little bit how it is working with family?
People ask me that all the time. I always tell everybody the same thing. Family business is either really great or really terrible. And it's very rarely anything in between. So it's going to be epic or it's going to be an epic failure. In our scenario, we really just got lucky. And that's a lot of family businesses. You don't get to choose who you work with. So we didn't. We just kind of lucked into a great group of guys. It's my brother-in-laws, like Luigi mentioned. So it's a very odd scenario. 3 sisters. I'm the only boy. And none of my sisters had a real desire to work in industrial distribution. It's not very sexy, fun, or creative. In a lot of ways, it's just a kind of a drag. So they didn't, but they married dudes that are fairly entrepreneurial, liked what the business offered, which is freedom to do what you want to do and make it what you want to make it. And so they jumped in and found myself working with all 3 of my brother-in-laws somewhere around 2012.
How does that make for a Thanksgiving dinner sometimes?
Well, we have like some unspoken rules about when we can and can't talk biz, and we try and keep, well, the easiest way to say it is we've all decided, committed to staying in our own lanes. We knew early on the business was small enough. It was only about 3 million in revenue that we needed to grow the business to make the pie a bit bigger. So we all had like decent take home out of the family biz. So we knew we had to grow it. And we also knew that we all wanted to kind of have an area that we could call our own. And so since we're all fairly entrepreneurial, we made several different little businesses inside the family business. I run one of those now that grew out of the family business called ShelfAware. If you want to put it in kind of a word picture, it's a hub and spokes model. So we have an industrial distributor called O-Ring Sales. That's the hub. And then we have little businesses that have been born out of that business. And those are the spokes. They're tangential. So the other business that we have is a e-com business. Basically, we use or leverage Amazon Marketplace to sell products that we typically wouldn't sell on our hub business. So we use our supply chain. We use all of our resources, but we leverage our unique experience in that marketplace to create products for more of a consumer marketplace that is Amazon. Yeah.
Now, Andrew, when you and the 3 knights of the round table are seated and there's a difference of opinion, do you get to pull rank because you've got the pure bloodline?
No, boy, I occasionally tell them to go back and ask their wives what they think. And that just draws tons of ire and yelling and cursing. So it's not a wise move. No, we are fairly, equal votes.
I am king. You are in-laws.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. That's not the way they view themselves.
That's great. I like the model that you guys have so many different revenue lines feeding back to the core business. But let's jump into ShelfAware. Tell us how you came up with ShelfAware, what it actually does. And I know from us speaking prior that it's pretty interesting that you have some similarities to Amazon Go.
Yeah, so it is similar to Amazon Go. It's basically Amazon Go. If you've ever seen the Amazon Go concept in the retail space, Amazon has created this autonomous, free, easy, convenient store. So as a consumer, you walk in off the street to an Amazon Go store and you walk in, you scan your credit card. That's how they know who you are. And then a whole series of cameras follow you around the store and you grab your soda pop and your chips and then you walk back out. There's no cashier. You don't talk to anybody and it charges your credit card like magically. Our system, ShelfAware, was invented really after a long series of other innovations and inventions. We decided to deploy a value-added service for our customers. So we call it an external innovation. So it's something that we're going to push to our customer base. And we started to beta test it in our own warehouse, and we found a willing customer who would let us trial the system. But it's basically Amazon Go for the industrial marketplace. So we create autonomous, remotely monitored convenience stores full of industrial products. So instead of your chips and your pop, you got Loctite and lubricants and plastic parts and fasteners and whatever widgets you need to build whatever you're manufacturing or building. They're all set up on shelving, and we basically turn pallet racks, shelves, floor stock into virtual vending machines. So these folks on the blue collar side, they walk in, they grab a box of fasteners, they grab some Loctite, and they go back to their work cell. And as they walk away, our ShelfAware hardware, proprietary hardware, tracks the movement of those products. And the way we track the products is we use smart labeling. So there's smart packaging. We've embedded little RFID sensors inside all the product packaging.
Now, let's talk about like the true effect on the bottom line. Matt and I were having a conversation a few days ago about those McDonald's kiosks. And one of those kiosks costs about $70,000. So if you own a franchise, in about 3 to 4 months, you get to meet that bottom line. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine to implement something like ShelfAware on a manufacturing basis would be a substantial capital expense. Give us an idea on how long it would take to recover that ROI.
Good question. It's a complicated answer because it depends on how big of a bite you want to take. So if you're going to convert a really, really large inventory on a manufacturing setting to a convenience store, you're talking about maybe 1,000 to 2,000 different inventory SKUs. And if you're not the current supplier, which was not the case, so we use this tool to grab giant chunks of business away from our competitors by offering a value-added selling service to the consumer. Hey, we're going to remotely monitor and stock all of your inventory products for you on this slick system. This is how your employees interact with it. They said, yes, sweet, sign us up. So the biggest capital, there's no machine, there's no fancy contraption we have to like invest in and to deploy. But we do have to go on site to the manufacturing facility and take all their current inventory, do one last physical inventory audit, and put it in this smart packaging. Once it's in the smart packaging, it's on the system. Our hardware is like $2,500 for a scanner. So $2,500 for $1 million supply chain, no big deal. And the smart packaging itself, they cost about $0.05 per smart package sensor. So that's no big deal because we have to apply labels anyway to products. So we add $0.05 to our packaging cost, but there's no humans involved, and we don't have to have people on site, which is a traditional VMI. So the upfront's very, very low. The biggest impact is going to be that go live process where you're bagging and tagging everything for the first time on site. You're going to probably spend, I mean, it really depends a lot, but on the size and scope, but you're going to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 tops in labor and time, just bagging and tagging everything for that first time.
So it's a no-brainer. I mean, everyone should be doing it. I guess that
100% no-brainer.
That hurdle is you don't know what you don't know. How do you inform all these manufacturers that this is available and this is the future?
Yeah, I'm frankly through media like this. So through podcasts, our website, through our YouTube channel, through I'm a public speaker now, which I never thought I'd be doing, but I speak at trade shows and conferences on technological innovation and the future of supply chain management. And hey, we got to remove labor from the equation in an industrial supply chain setting. We need better visibility and transparency of these supply chains. So I speak anywhere I can to try and get the word out because we are a very small company who's done something really incredible and it's disrupting the industrial marketplace. But it is hard to get that message out. And then the other big hurdle we're facing, which I didn't think I'd face, is we have something that's so awesome and so cool, but we are replacing really massive infrastructures created over decades by other industrial distributors. And those industrial distributors have spent their life building out old school vendor managed inventories, which consist of a network of branch locations and sales reps and trucks. So think like Fastenal, Grainger, MSC, and then you have like Applied Industrial, IBT, some regional players. These guys have thousands of branch locations with thousands of employees driving around in trucks, visually monitoring inventory on clipboards or using barcode scanners, and then going back to their branch location, putting together physical orders, going back to the facility and stocking a product. Now you're talking to like business owners who have really large companies. These are, a couple $100 million. And you're saying, and this is a very harsh way to say it. This is not how I say it, but you're telling them you could close 45% of your branch locations. You could you could relocate or fire or terminate half of your sales reps because we have a system that can remotely monitor the inventory consumption without people on site. But they have such a hard time taking everything they built and just jettisoning it. So lots of them say, look, we can't do that. Like we're going to have to like barely stick our toe in the water somewhere. So it's not as, I wish we could just like, I don't know how to say it, but like, there's just not that many people with that kind of a mindset are going to like trash and light on fire, the last 10 years of what they've built out.
Sure. I mean, some people just have that old adage, better the evil you know than the evil you don't. So it's just your challenge is to have that leap of faith and convince them to hop onto this.
Yeah. And I need to do a better job of telling the story. And I need to do a better job of trying to draw and it is a complex picture. It's not just a vendor managed inventory system we're deploying now. Once we remotely track that inventory consumption, we get all that data. We're building orders off of that data. So there's no more order entry. So customer service on the supplier side becomes a lot more automated, and you can use a lot less sales rep people and customer service people to manage really, really large accounts. So that's some of the secret to our family business success and why we have so few employees for so much revenue is because we're managing these accounts using ShelfAware. Instead of the traditional method of they submit a purchase order, you got to process that order, the purchase order is wrong, now you got to tweak it, lots of changes, there's tons of back and forth, phone calls, emails, none of that stuff. It all goes away.
You imagine today with the shortage in the labor markets right now, right, that you would be getting a lot of inquiries into your technology. And your technology, did you say it was patent?
We have some patents on the technology. That's and awesome. Some pending patents.
Who would your end user be? Would it be a Home Depot, a Lowe's of the world?
Right now, most of our end users are manufacturers. So these are the consumers of that inventory on a manufacturing setting. And the easiest way to think of it is like, think of a pump or motor manufacturer. They have tons of inbound inputs, lots of little widgets that they bring together to make a pretty complex engineered product.
When you guys developed ShelfAware, right, that was just for you guys to help manage your own inventory in-house, right?
No. We were running vendor managed inventories for our customers, for our manufacturing customers. And we had dudes in trucks driving around, and we thought this is ludicrous. This is sort of in 2015. And we were sending people out in a truck for, a 50-minute drive to do a 20-minute visual inspection of inventory at a factory, then get back in the truck, drive back, like put an order together, drive back to the factory. Like, this is so stupid. Like, why are we doing this? And so that's why we invented ShelfAware, just to get our people back off the street and looking at a computer screen, watching the inventory get depleted on the computer screen, as opposed to like people driving all over the damn place.
So how did you get involved with the family business? Did you go to school? Did you know you were always going to work in the family business?
No.
How did that work out?
I think, and this is probably a lot of people's stories, when you grow up with a founder of a company like this, it was really like hand to mouth for most of my childhood. See, the company started in 82. I was born in 85. So my whole childhood's wrapped up in this little industrial distributor. And my dad had no outside equity, investors, no capital. He was using my mom's nursing salary. It was very much the American dream, family business, bootstraps. But the dark side of that is he, it wasn't always a pleasant upbringing. I mean, I think he scarred my sister's pretty good with just the drama of it all, the scariness of it all, and he had no real good outlet for it. So sometimes he'd come home and just like, be raging mad, and the family would take the brunt of it. So I, from an early age, was like, shit, I'm never working there. Like, my dad's insane. He's always angry. He's always frustrated. But then as I got older into high school, I started to recognize the potential. And he, frankly, he had the blood, sweat, and tears already poured into it. So he had gotten it off the ground and was clearly going to make it. So I actually didn't decide I really even wanted to work for him or with him until like junior, senior year of high school. And then he told me, great, if you want to come work for me, you got to go get a bachelor's in finance or accounting, because that's the one piece that I really wish I had when I started this company. And so I went to a 4-year college and got a 4.0 in accounting, and then came back and worked for him right out of college.
That spoken wheel model, it's a brilliant model. We use it in our business too. Let me ask you this though, being in a family dynamic, coming from a business that started out one way and you guys transformed to different revenue lines, when you come across a new idea that you think should be added on to the business, another spoke inside of that wheel, how do you guys decide that it's the right model for you?
Talk about it, put it out on a whiteboard. And then the first, if we make a casual decision, I mean, there's nothing like, our meetings aren't really long and they're pretty casual. So we'll grab a beer, talk about it. But the formalized part of the process is the very first thing we do is build out some sort of analytical tool to gauge whether this idea is good or not. And that was probably one key to our success was having the analytics in place to analyze if what we were doing, the direction we were running, was indeed profitable. And we needed to know that really quick. And so for like our Amazon marketplace piece, before we really like just sunk a ton of money and speculation and inventory and started throwing listings up and creating products, we were more concerned with, how do we analyze the data from Amazon and analyze our sales and then take into account all the fees they're going to charge us, our holding costs, our inventory carrying costs on that outside of our ERP system, because our ERP system for industrial distribution is not built to manage that type of e-com business. And so we basically built out our own little data dashboard that my brother-in-law could run metrics on, and then found some other third-party software to kind of like tie it all together. And that was a necessary step before we really sunk hundreds of thousands of dollars into that investment, was figuring out if it was going to be successful early.
Fantastic. How did your brother-in-laws wind up joining the family business after they met your sisters?
Great question. First one, he's my oldest brother-in-law. He's in his early 40s, and he's a master's degree in physical education, wanted to be a coach, couldn't get a coaching job, and had moved back to Kansas City, where our business is located, with my sister. They'd just gotten married, and he was broke. And my mom and dad were like, hey, you can come pack boxes and shipping for us if you want. So he did. So he worked in the warehouse for a while. And then our accountant at the time left, and we needed to fill the accounting seat. And so they asked him if he'd go to junior college and get like a basic accounting, a couple accounting courses under his belt. He did, and that was his genesis. The other two we kind of recruited. So after that one worked out, we recruited the other two brother-in-laws away from good careers and said, hey, if you'd come work here, we could really use somebody we can trust and somebody who's passionate and somebody who has skin in the game, to help us grow this business and re-envision it. And so we basically went out and headhunted the other two guys after they'd been married to my sisters for at least a year or so. Then we started to bring it up at family meals and stuff. The last one on board was the longest courting process. We actually took him to lunch like several times and tried to get him enticed in the family business thing. And he's, I think the first year he's like, I don't know, that was a great move or not. And then now he's 100% loves it and he's happy he's here. But he had a great job. He's a mechanical engineer, licensed, degree, worked for a huge firm, and they had him like in some golden handcuffs. We had a terrible time yanking him away.
Do these guys get bonuses by performance on the job, or whether they give you nieces or nephews?
My dad always talks about that to people casually, talking about, that's his reward for working with his sons, is they want to see more and more grandkids. No, the reality is they get paid distributions. We're a S corp, and so they get distributions based on the performance of the company, like all of us, and we have equal shares. So we're all, driven to get more profit.
From our previous talks, you guys have some really high margins. How were you guys able to find efficiencies inside the business to drive your margins higher than the general industry standard?
We built the efficiencies. So that was the start of our process. I said we all started kind of working on the business together in 2012. My oldest brother-in-law, who was the coach, he started writing software. And this is real basic stuff. Like we have a Microsoft SQL database that runs in the background of our ERP system. He got really familiar with how to interact with that database independent of our ERP without corrupting the data for our ERP. So we built basically a mirrored database and allowed him to get a little heavy-handed with our data. Got a good handle on our data. He started to flesh out analytics, and then using those analytics, we found efficiency bottlenecks. And we also just walked around the place too and said, like, geez, why the hell are the warehouse guys always walking to the front? We wrote down like the 5 or 6 reasons they're always coming to the front. Like, look, we never want the warehouse guys to walk into the front office. It's like wildly inefficient, and it's story time, and then nobody's working. And so we tackled like apparent bottlenecks with pieces of automation, wireless warehouse apps that we built out ourselves. We love mobile apps. We would have done it through our ERP system provider, but frankly, like all the software you buy from them is so generic, it just never works for your specific company and industry and what you need. So we ended up just building out a lot of these little pieces that made us wildly efficient. And it was a series of small innovations. So we tackle a project, run really fast, deploy it, the employees would get on board pretty quick. We're like, oh, this little mobile app's pretty slick. I never have to go to the front anymore for a material cert, and all the information is just pushed to my shipping station. And well, I mean, we spent like a year working on making the shipping stations more automated, accessible, data-driven, and then created just monsters of efficiency. That was our process from 2012 to 2015. Was basically 3 years of micro innovations, lots of custom computer code, a couple different mobile apps, a couple different systems that we deployed that allowed our shipping guys to be wildly more efficient than our competition. So, I mean, we still have 2 shippers pushing millions and millions of dollars of physical goods. And there's no way around it. When you're a physical goods distributor, you have to like touch the product, bag the product, ship the product. And that's what we focused our efforts on. And then ShelfAware was invented in 2015. And that added a whole new layer of efficiency, because now that we were data driven on the customer side, we weren't waiting for them to send us purchase orders. We could like work ahead of time and be more efficient based on what we knew was coming from our customers. So we do a lot of pre-packaging in the warehouse based on predictive packaging models. Like we know how they're going to consume it based on near-term consumption data. So that makes us more efficient than the average distributor.
That's amazing. You know, with all the production delays due to COVID and the shipping delays out there, how are you and your clients managing supply chain issues right now?
Well, the truth of it is, even a sweet ass system like ShelfAware can't save you from back-end supply chain issues. So like when Vietnam shuts down or China says, bye-bye, we'll see you guys in a couple months. There's really like no way around that. I will say that from a sourcing standpoint, we're in the rubber and plastics industry, and I spent a good solid decade of my life going to and from Asia with a consultant. Basically, he's a friend of my dad's, but he helped us fortify our inbound supply chain, which about half of it comes from overseas. And when I say fortify, we just diversified it. We have lots of pieces in India. We have some pieces in Taiwan, some pieces in Vietnam, some pieces in China, whereas a lot of our competition's kind of pot committed to one country. So that's made our road a little less bumpy, but it still has its bumps. And then with ShelfAware, we have the best chance of not running our customers out of product. But when we ourselves can't get stuff out of our typical sources, it can still become, pretty messy.
Yeah, the supply chain issue is affecting a lot of businesses, a lot of our clients. I'm sure a lot of listeners are going through the same thing right now.
There's no easy fix. Like if they didn't do that work like I did 10 years ago to diversify their supply chain, they're hosed now. They don't. There's no prayer. I mean, it's hard to react to stuff like this. You really have to be proactive. So maybe they're getting burned now, and they'll spend the next 10 years preparing for the next disaster by making their inbound supply chain more diversified.
We would hope so, right? Unfortunately, some people don't learn from their mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So they're still stuck in hope and pray mode. With that being said, it sounds like the family business is growing awesome. I love all the revenue lines that you guys have coming in. What's next? What's 2.0 for O-Ring and ShelfAware? Where do you guys see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think before we started recording, I was kind of talking with you pre-show about growth mode versus profit mode. And so for an industrial distribution company, it does look really sexy to grow your revenue by the millions every year. But from a physical inventory standpoint, we were starving. So like my brothers and I were building this like company that was adding $1 to $2 million of revenue every year, but our inventory was eating us alive from a cash standpoint to support the customers. So we'd get a big giant supply chain contract, boom, put another $300,000 on the shelf. So that's basically when we went all in with ShelfAware, making it a web-based independent company that we could license to other individuals. Software is more scalable than the industrial distribution marketplace. And so we basically, I wouldn't say our core business is on hold, but we're not aggressively going after large contracts right now. And we're kind of just sitting back on the hub. And the hub is kind of on coast mode. We're trying to just, do the best for our customers and maintain the best customer relationships with our current customers. If we get organic growth, great, but we're not going to out there like just gunslingers trying to grow that thing. Instead, we're shifting a lot of our time and efforts into ShelfAware, which is obviously has the more potential. It's much more scalable as a software as a service than an industrial distributor, and focus on innovations inside of this whole ecosystem. So we're building out a web-based platform that we can license to independent industrial distributors, and then collectively they offer the marketplace a much better product than, say, one giant company like Fastenal. So Fastenal is a huge industrial distributor. They can sell you anything, but they're so big that they've become kind of good at everything, great at nothing. The ShelfAware network of industrial suppliers, these are niche suppliers that are great at what they do. And collectively, we can bring you every product you need on one omni-channel service called ShelfAware, but from independent suppliers. And so that's what we're driving toward, is creating that collective, that ShelfAware platform feel, and then basically going head to head with some giants in the industrial marketplace to try and really kick them in the teeth.
Andrew, as you're growing, you've mentioned to us all the assets and the pros of your platform. Can you humbly tell us if there are any negatives that you're tweaking currently?
No, I don't think there
It's
really
the
are.
perfect product, ladies and gentlemen. It's the perfect product.
Yeah, there's always things, new features that we could develop that would allow us to get even broader and go into other spaces like maintenance and repair. And of course, we're working on those features, like user tracking. So right now, probably our biggest weakness is we can tell you when what was consumed, but we can't tell you who consumed it. So if you're in a large factory setting, there could be hundreds of employees interacting with this inventory. I couldn't tell you if Billy or Bob or Jim or Richard consume that inventory. I can just tell you when the inventory left the inventory area. So we're working on identity, because that's a key aspect for some of these products that have a street value, because frankly, then you can track the product consumption by who and find out if Luigi has a side hustle selling Loctite on eBay.
I have a question for you. Being that the main business is so inventory intensive, right? How do you guys go about funding that inventory and that growth there when you need to?
My paycheck, the ownership. We don't have any outside capital investors, so I mean that's why it's really, really important for us to do business with. We're pretty selective about our customer base. If they don't pay, you're gone. We have no bad payables. We never have. We get rid of them as fast as we can and go find another customer. We're not afraid to fire customers if they're garbage, and so we drive towards great customers with a really diversified. We tend to go towards the high tech, higher value products, and just stay away from the high volume commodity stuff that everybody's chasing. So it's built out a really good gross profit margin, because what we do is complicated for our complicated customers. But in so doing, we can fund our own growth. And so when we have to pick up $250,000 in inventory for a large new customer, that comes out of my pocket and my brother's and my dad's.
So you guys self-fund everything going out.
Yeah.
Typically your receivables in this type of industry is what, 30 to 60 days out? Or
Yeah,
a little bit
it'll be
longer?
about 30 to 60. Ours tend to average about like right in the middle there at 45. We have no bad debts. Our AR to AP ratio is crazy. So we'll usually, and that's the other thing, we have great analytics. So I could tell you where it is right now, the very second. And that spread, we watch that spread, but that spread's gotten, like my dad used to be really happy with like a 2-to-1, and now sometimes it's 3-to-1.
That's awesome.
On the AR/AP spread. And yeah, no collections issues. So that's key to fund your own growth. You obviously have to be a cash machine. But at some point, if you want to pay yourself, you got to quit growing in this inventory heavy industry.
You guys are really focused on industrial right now. I think you guys are doing great there. Do you have any desire or see yourselves eventually going out into the retail markets?
Not retail. I think there's too much competition there with too much money. I mentioned Amazon Go and kind of comparing ShelfAware to Amazon Go. The Amazon Go system, it's much more complex, and you run into all these data security issues with people's personal financial information. And that adds like layers of complexity that we don't have the expertise. So I don't think we're going to tackle that monster. And that's obviously the shiny prize everybody's going after. So it's very competitive. I would like to stay in a place that has more white space in it. It's more archaic and there's more opportunity there. That's industrial. Industrial in America and in our country is like wildly behind the times, because we stopped investing in the industrial marketplace as a country generations ago and started outsourcing all of our production to China and Taiwan and Vietnam and India. And now you see some of that coming back. And so I think it's boomtown in the industrial marketplace right now. And there's going to have to be a lot of upgrades in industrial manufacturing infrastructure because it's like from the 1950s. You got companies running on clipboards and chalkboards. They're like drawn out production schedules with a chalkboard. It's insane. And they're running manufacturers with QuickBooks. That's stupid. And it's tons of people and it's tons of labor. There's going to be huge growth in robotics, cobotics, analytics, AI, vision, all of that stuff in the manufacturing sector. So I think we're in the right place. We just, if we go anywhere with ShelfAware, it's going to be into slightly different B2B inventory settings. So you can take this to any other application outside of B2C. So we're going to stick to B2B, and it's going to be an inventory heavy application. That's probably our future. We're atypical in the fact that we have a tech company, but we haven't gone out and gotten any private equity or huge investments in cash. We want to organically grow this one too, and we think it can organically scale really quickly. So we're going to try it. Yeah,
Andrew, over the last couple of decades, we've seen manufacturing leave the States to go elsewhere. And as it slowly trickles back, do you think that a product and a platform like yours can be the key to maintaining that manufacturing base stateside?
I think products like ShelfAware are going to they're going to explode, and they're going to have to help us bring the manufacturing back, because the one thing the U.S. doesn't have is a willing labor force. And I don't know what to do about that. It's a cultural problem. We've driven so many generations to college, and they're not cool with manual labor. They don't think it's sexy. They don't want to do it. We don't have the skill set to do it. So companies like ShelfAware, who have more robotics, automation-based systems to really focus on minimizing a company's need for human capital to grow and scale, are going to be the winners in the services provided network.
I love it. You sold me. If you are looking for outside investments, give me a call. Hey, Andrew, we really appreciate you being here, man. It was an absolute pleasure. I actually learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners did too. And I think the industrial space is, this is like the second industrial revolution coming, right? We had Web 2.0. This is industrial 2.0 that we're moving into right now. And I think you guys are positioned very well to take a lot of market share in space. And I love the story. I love the family dynamic, Can you tell the audience where they can reach you on the socials if they have any questions, if anybody wants to, get involved and take a look at what you guys have to offer? Where can they find you?
Yeah, the best way to take a look at what ShelfAware is doing is go to YouTube and type in ShelfAware, all one word, ShelfAware, all one word. You'll find our YouTube channel. We have a collection of really short videos. You can see every aspect of the system. We don't have any secrets. We kind of like put everything out there, so you can see how it works. We're out in the field all the time. It's more of my ugly mug, unfortunately, on all the videos, because we are a pretty small company. Otherwise, they can find me on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn and search Andrew Johnson, Supply Chain Innovator. Put all that in because Andrew Johnson's a really common name. So type the whole thing in. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to talk to you there if you have any business ideas. I'd like to tell your audience one kind of like sign off here. This story, our family business story, is amazing, but it's 100% achievable. I think small business is the new big business, because in these really hyper chaotic times of huge hyper novelty and lots of change, your company can get ahead of the big companies because we're small, we're fast, we're nimble. You just have to get your hands messy. And from an ownership and management standpoint, it comes down to those folks getting their hands messy, getting down in the trenches and figuring out what's holding their company back, and just removing those barriers so you can run faster and faster and faster and be more efficient.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here from the 17th President of the United States, Andrew Johnson. It's been a pleasure.
That's right. Thank you, guys.
Hey, Andrew, one question before I let you go. I ask everybody on the show. Lou cut me a little bit short. What does success look like to you, Mr. Johnson?
To me, success is not monetary. It's about making changes in the industry that you worked in your whole career. So I want to be a disruptor. I want to make people think about business in a new light. And that's what I want to be known for.
I love it. Thanks so much for your time. And that's a wrap, everybody. I'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.
Thank you for listening to the show, and make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.